Also, isn't it true that if you do this, if you're eating healthier, and if you are learning earlier, that you do become a smarter person because you have better food, you can do well in school, and then you can grow.
Well, these days we need to start growing our own food, because there are corner stores you go in that don't even have these kind of products. They do have vegetables and things like that. They're spoiled, or the bananas are not ripe, or apples still got wormholes in them, whatever the case may be. But milk is outdated. We need to start growing our own food. And then to reiterate on what she spoke on as far as the prisoners, they may be more green than we are. And they do a lot more labor than we do. Wow. So they may be more green.
So what you're describing is a food desert.
Yes.
Places where you cannot get healthy food.
Healthy foods.
It's not even a choice.
Right,
I'm a resident of Inglewood, and when I want to go buy organic, or I want to maybe get a smoothie or something that I know will be good for me, I have to travel either all the way north of Roosevelt, or I have to go into Beverly, where we have more affluent people. But Inglewood, a corner store, and finding an apple or orange, maybe that's probably what you'll find, maybe an apple or orange. But if you're looking for the term organic, it's impossible.
So you're saying you have the information, you have the education,
I have the
you're making the right choice, and
it's just not available to me.
Wow. Or it seems like the concept of eco or eco-elitism comes up again, because we're saying that the green stuff, the organic food, are beyond the reach of low-income people. They're just expensive. The hybrid cars are more expensive, the organic produce are more expensive. So if we're talking about putting food on the table and paying for the rent and medication, you'll choose to buy the bad stuff because you can't afford the good stuff.
So are you suggesting that even if the stores carried the right stuff, that it wouldn't sell as well because it costs more, and that therefore,
it seems that way.
Some people are struggling with everyday life just to survive. Like you said, just to put regular food on the table, let alone go spend $4.99 a pound for a bag of apples, organic apples.
That gets back to those green-collar jobs, so people can have more money, so they can get the information and make the correct choice. Give a sec.
And Belmont also we're talking about food, but let's just talk about clean air and clean water. I mean, we're here in Inglewood. There's a reason why there's a term eco-racism, environmental justice. When we don't have the same access to just clean water, when you have an urban area that's next to like a paint factory or that's next to smog. We just finished a couple years ago with the Dan Ryan construction project. And we know that needed to be done, but when you start digging in the ground, that releases all types of pollutants, and then that gets in the water. And none of the water that we drink, a good proportion of the water that we drink
and the air that we breathe.
Exactly.
There was even a recent news outing where it said that this family lived next to this factory that worked with gas and things like that, and when they turned on the water, they could literally light a fire with the faucet.
Stop. You've made that up.
No, it came on
Flammable water?
Yeah, flammable water, like literally. They literally lit a match and it actually went on fire.
How does that happen? How can that be? How can that be? What do you think?
I think it's a lot that does with, once again, withholding information from people.
But that's a news story. How is that not on the news? I see a lot of silly stories on the news. How is that not on the news?
Well, there are a lot of things that aren't on the news. Like, look at Katrina, for instance. It brought about a lot of issues that were occurring that were being hidden for so long.
Right. It took the disaster to put our attention in that area.
So hopefully it wouldn't take a disaster for people to find things out, but, it's seeming that, like, that's the way it's
You're saying there are other Katrinas without the hurricane?
Yeah.
Those circumstances exist elsewhere. Yes, sir.
I think those circumstances happen in our schools. The food that the public school serves children, it's disgraceful. And like ketchup is a vegetable, I mean, that is ridiculous. So we learn from our environment. What are our kids learning about nutrition? They're learning that ketchup is a vegetable, and if I just have some ketchup on my fries, I'll be fine. And it starts with, I mean, you talked about what are some of the things that can happen. We can demand that our city serve our children better food. If we're going to incorporate that in a WIC program, we certainly have to incorporate that kind of demand in our school systems.
So does that make sense to you? It's a valid argument that, we can talk about all these things, but somehow we have to pay for them. The idea that seems to be emerging is, we're spending this money, let's spend it wiser. Is that a sensible solution to you?
I mean, we can spend it wiser, but I mean, if you look at history, it shows that central planning, economies that are based on central planning, do not last long. They're only used as a spark. If we were actually going
Now,
to
what do you mean by that term? Economies based on central planning. Explain that.
Well, when you have government intervention, if you have the government meddling too much in the economy usually does not last. I mean,
Is that one of the things that led to some of these collapses that Jared Diamond wrote about? Is that your point?
I'm certain yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Is that society sometimes collapses? What about that? Is it?
Actually, I don't believe that that's true. I think that government has always had a hand in the economy. And what we're really seeing with the free market economy is a reduction in social spending and an increase in deregulation that's led to our current economic crisis. I think that when we talk about central planning, it depends on exactly what you mean by that. If you're talking about, for example, some of the socialist states that have existed in the past, there's a little bit more than central planning, but we actually often see with the deregulation of industry an increase in environmental problems, an increase in worker safety issues, and also, if we look at our telephone and television, an increase in price.
Well, I mean, if I would like to mention something.
Hold on, let's play this out.
I mean, well, you're not paying the price outright, but you are paying in some form because that's subsidized by our taxes. I mean, we are paying that price. I would like to mention.
There's an age-old debate, ecologists against economists. The ecologists are saying we must do these things for the earth and for the people, and economists are saying, and how are we going to pay for that? How do we resolve that debate? This is it's not just him. This is a central argument against the green-collar economy.
Yeah, this reminds me of this debate between Paul Ehrlich and Simons, Paul Simon. They bet the earth, and eventually the ecologist lost, and the economist won the bet. And that was a striking, result. However, if you look at Jared Diamond's 12th point in his book, he says that it's the impact. It's not the population growth per se, but the impact. Means impact. According to Paul and this physicist guy, they come up with this iPad equation, which is impact is equal to populations, multiply that by the affluence, and multiply that by the technology that we always demand for. So if we're talking about the impact on any environmental factor, it's how the population is attracted to. If there's always on TV only hybrid cars, then probably that would be a good thing to have. But if it's only Hummers, then that's a different story. Affluence. We spend almost, we are 38 times more affluent than a third world country people.
So you're saying we're not broke.
We're not broke.
And that we need to think about
Yes.
spending some of our money in this area.
Yes.
Let's hear another comment.
Just let me add one more thing,
Okay.
and I'll let him go. And it's technology. And the way I view things is, technology has a very good hand in trying to solve, not all of them, majority of the problems.
Yes, technology, because then things can be cheaper.
Yes.
And so we can do more. Rather
Yes.
than just spending more, let's use technology so that we can do more, maybe even for less money.
Yes.
Good idea. Good. 1 second. Here we go.
I think we shouldn't forget the role of lobbyists in all these issues because they push the policy to where it will benefit them the more. Like, for example, the issue in California when they were trying to change the law to make sure that petroleum is taxed so that it can help the environment. The lobbyists came in, campaigned vigorously, convincing people because they control the resources, the money, the media. And that is the big problem. But what part of the solution Van Jones is saying and others are sharing with us today is that we need to reach out to even the lobbyists because they are part of the solution as much as part of the problem.
Well,
too.
they live on the earth.